There is no time like the present, my friends. Welcome back. Artist Journal, Thursday, October 26, 2023, broadcasting from Taormina, Sicily, on a beautiful, gorgeous, sunny day here. I can't wait to get out there, but first things first, we have to look at what's gone on in the last 48 hours. So welcome back. My name is Adrian Pocobelli. And this piece was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. And, you know, I may have to actually change the view next time. The view is stunning in this. It's almost like a glass apartment with curtains. So it's all wonderful. And thank you for the massive, just the huge support on this program. I mean, it continues to boggle my mind just how far those videos on Twitter have been going. And I probably should have been doing it months ago, but all things in their proper time and place. And also a big shout out and thank you to everybody who came to the space yesterday with Tukes, and it was awesome. I mean, the word that keeps coming into my mind is philosophical. Tukes is a philosophical artist out of Brazil. A great artist, comes out of Glitch and ended up kind of in AI. And we discussed all of that on the show. I'll take a look. I'll show you the link coming up here. But first things first, let's take a look at Sabato. Explainer Gallery has put out an awesome show on Object One and a whole bunch of one-of-ones on the Tezos blockchain here on Object's curated platform. So now, you know, when they first started Object One, I was kind of skeptical on this idea of a closed platform, but I will say this. They're pretty open as far as people curating on it, at least from what I can tell. It seems like if you have, you know, if you've been around, you know, this blockchain for a while and you've kind of put your time in, it sounds like they'll give you a shot, and I think that's pretty cool. So Explainer is just another example of that, who has curated a super cool show. And it was just so obvious that I had to start with this work when I saw it. So here is Sabato. And this, I think it's called Art Week. It is. Art Week GIF 1280 by 1024, 42 frames. I find that actually pretty interesting. I like that. Maybe the next time I post a GIF, I'll put the amount of frames. That looks cool. It looks credible, doesn't it? All is fair at the art fair. Almost Shakespearean here. Welcome to Art Week. Look at the big names. Smell all the big money. The paintings are popping. The performance art is fire. And even the capybaras, these guys down here, are beginning to occupy a little corner created in Deluxe Paint 4 on an emulated Amiga A1200 computer. Now, let me just make that big again. So it's pretty hilarious, and there's a ton of work to get through here, but let me just show you, like over here you have Contemporaire, and you have the Keith Haring, hilariously, maybe a Murakami here, Abusive almost like Barbara, what's her, almost like this text artist, famous text artist, you know, almost classic contemporary art, some outrageous flamethrower with someone's hair. There's a lot of humor in this work. And forgive the hair. This show is a miracle it got going today because I had to restart my computer, and usually Chrome will reload all your tabs. Well, half the tabs didn't reload. So I had to recreate this show kind of almost from scratch. So it is a miracle. But so I'm not worrying about my hair. Is what I'm trying to tell you. Here it almost looks like the Queen with two little Jeff Koons, balloon dogs. I mean, it's just littered full of references. Maybe a Pepe here, someone at an ATM, maybe a rich collector, and of course this is Art Bollocks, maybe a reference to this over here. And here, you know, this reminds me of maybe the Venice Biennale where there was like a robot painter thing. You gotta love the surveillance cameras, and this is hilarious here too. All to say these Deluxe 4 paintings, are really going somewhere, aren't they? Like they are, and you know, we're seeing that with RJ and the Halloween works, how humble beginnings and how it only took 2 years, I would say only, from what are very humble beginnings. The same thing happened with Sabato, I would argue, with these Amiga paintings. Of course, Sabato has been making work for a very long time, at least a decade, probably more, doing glitch. So not to say Sabato's just starting, but with the Deluxe 4 or the Amiga paintings, the Deluxe Paint paintings, you can go to Sabato's Object, which I highly recommend. I mean, a lot of it's still cheap. There are a ton of deals on Sabato's Object, I will just tell you. Last I checked, couple of weeks ago. You'll see that the humble beginnings of the drawing exercises, and here we are 2 years later and look at this. I mean, we have these, what I'd call kind of grand narrative paintings, a beautiful take on the GIF, even. It's not all moving. Again, it's very powerful, where it's not a movie. It's not where the whole thing's moving. It's just some parts here and there. Let's keep going here. Super deep, and you have Britney Spears. Interesting. I wonder if Sabato was able to cut and paste in here. I mean, it got me thinking, like, how did this happen? And here you have more surveillance cameras and all sorts of stuff. So all the mayhem of an art fair, even a little bit of trash reference here. And it looks like a grifter from X-Copy, and so only grails, that almost looks like a Warhol of sorts. So all hilarious, all great, brilliant. I mean, that's why I've spent so much time on it. And one last thing, the pink floor. You gotta love the pink floor. Great decision. It would have been tempting. Again, it reminds me of the Green and Bazias basketball there that we saw yesterday. A subtle color decision, but which kind of illuminates the whole work. And I'd argue that's kind of what's happening in this work. The pink, it's not just like some orange gray, sepia. Like it's quite brilliant. So all to say, gorgeous color here, as we've come to expect from Sabato. So here's the show. Now I'm actually going to I'm going to whirl through all of them very quickly, though. We're not going to give the extended. Sabato kind of won the prize in my mind. It was just one of those instant, I love it kind of works. These are going to go on sale, too. It'll be really interesting to see what Art Week is going to go for, as well as all the others. Let's look at, it's an all-star cast here. Hacking the trading booth, we have a new Popple, and it is very sunny in here, so I'm just trying to... And so just another one of, a Popple one of one. And Popple, I haven't looked at his Twitter recently, but last I checked, it was 60,000, and he was just getting... Remember when he got 4 million visits? Like, maybe not everybody who's watching now was watching, 2 months ago. When he was getting, 3 months ago, when he got something like 4 million views on Twitter, where all of a sudden the views were becoming more interesting than how much works were selling for in terms of, quote unquote valuations. And so Popple, a one of one Popple, as we go through, as I like to call it, the Antiques Roadshow meets Blade Runner here. And look at this. I mean, another stunning work. You know what this reminded me of? Of course, this is Kappen, Void Traders, the poetry. These, the titles in a lot of works that I'm seeing are frankly more interesting than what I see in, like, if you go to a bookshop and look at the contemporary, fiction. I actually like the titles out here better, so just more bullishness for the scene. But you know what this reminded me of? What this looks like to me are little sketches that Kappen has done. Who knows? But that's what it looks like. And then kind of joined with little kind of orbiting kind of star things, let's say. But you know what it reminded me of were those Basquiat works, if you've seen them, where it's basically kind of like this, what I call the sketchbook style, sketchbook composition style, where it's just a whole bunch of, little things, and maybe he puts his crown, just little pencil drawings, and then just stuff kind of juxtaposed together, and it all just kind of looks good. It all works. That's what that reminded me of here, where it's basically just a whole bunch of what look like little sketches by Kappen, all put together, kind of sketchbook style. It's beautiful. It's interesting. It's fun, right? Void Traders, 12, and again, You know, we were talking about small file sizes, and we'll actually have a return to that theme very briefly here. Small compositions too. I mean, we were talking yesterday in with Tukes about the, you know, what it was like to be a digital artist before NFTs, and you know, unless you're one of these, you know, upper crust 5-10% that were already had galleries, were providing physical works. It was all to say, it was all about figuring out how to make your digital work physical so that you could actually turn it into a marketable, something that you could feed yourself with. That was the big challenge before NFTs. Now that's completely, you know, kind of reversed, where all of a sudden the economics have been turned upside down. Where digital now, it costs you almost nothing to make your work. You can make 100 paintings in a day, and it doesn't cost, all it costs you is electricity to charge your battery, and you can theoretically put them online and sell them for hundreds of dollars or a few dollars immediately. It's one of the best businesses out there, and this is, you know, all of a sudden, and to, as Tukes pointed out yesterday, creating physical work is expensive. It's a very important kind of thing that can be missed. And so let's continue here. We have quite a few more to go through here. Of course, Muji. I always get the consonants and vowels wrong on that. Muji with another super cool deluxe paint work here. And I always love what Muji puts in the little screens and everything, these kind of wild abstractions here. So another just beautiful work, again, just very funly curated. Look at this stunner by Stalamir. And they actually had a Twitter space yesterday, if anybody wants to listen in to the entire show. And look at this. I thought this was brilliant. Negotiations. Again, another great title and even concept here, as you have these two kind of sci-fi pixel art figures. It's almost like negotiations in the 30th century, right? Where they're kind of negotiating, you know, through light, you know, and it kind of, as the coffee hits here, you know, reminiscent of that Terence McKenna idea where he was talking about, was it octopi, the cephalopods, or, and he was talking about how they communicate with light and how he's suggesting that in the future, like that light and, you know, that, and maybe it's going to bridge too far here and it's going to go too long. Let's return to that because I'm not even sure I remember exactly what Terence McKenna was saying. Well, actually I do. That ultimately communication that's visual is less ambiguous than language. That is what I remember. And so suggesting that a language of light is kind of the future. A language of light, and that's kind of what we see here. Is a language of light. A language is ambiguous, which is kind of what makes it interesting. I suppose images also are ambiguous, can be ambiguous, and that's part of what makes them poetic. Continuing on, Demon Ego. Again, in All-Star Cast here, let's... so a beautiful, ambitious work here by Demon Ego. You gotta love the graph paper that almost turns into pixels here, and the different kinds of animations, the screenshot almost showing the process, showing the trail. Brilliant. Daisy by Saiko. I think she calls these kari-karis, the sparkles. And I heard her briefly. I checked in briefly on the Twitter space near the end there. And she's talking about trading cards. And she's on our Twitter, on the Twitter space that Runetoon and I do also. Where she talked about trading cards and how they're a huge influence on her, as they were for me. Comics and trading cards, stamps, these little, you know, images. And so here, Saiko is taking it to the next level digitally with these beautiful works here. Mental Noise with a work here. Apologize, the sun is kind of shining on my screen a little bit here, so it can be hard to see a little bit, but beautiful work here. Almost looks like a podcast interview, and there's Mental Noise being interviewed by an alien figure. A Trip to the Earth, cool title. The Hibernation of Wealth, and this is Lex Doom, who I think we've looked at a couple of Lex Doom's works in the past, and interesting kind of financial, I guess Trader is the name of the series. So continuing with that cool financial theme, I'm a huge fan of financial themes. I think it's one of the big, in Futures and Options, an early, kind of my first real ambitious kind of art series, I argued in the artist statement, which is somewhere buried on my website, I think, or somewhere online, that the two main themes of the 21st century, and I was writing this in 2012, are technology and finance. And so I'm, and I actually think that's still 10 years later, I actually still think that's rings true. And so I'm a big fan of Explainer doing this trader theme that can be kind of interpreted however it wants. Now, this is a narrator. And of course, Explainer Gallery is out of kind of pixel artwork here. Almost got a Sailor Moon vibe to it. And this is Narisovka. And maybe I don't know if I've ever seen Narisovka's work before. So cool. This is a pretty interesting way. We were talking about different renditions of a work, and sometimes it's hard to decide which one to use. Well, with GIFs, you can use all of them. Merchant of the Soul, poetic, another kind of Shakespearean title. The Hunt for Rare Matter, and this is Blue Retina, of course, with classic blue retina colors here. So sci-fi work. So, The Hunt for Rare Matter, cool title again. And Euphoria by Sumfei. And so interesting to think of this in the trader context, and two people doing, do not try to find the words, trust yourself, almost like a dance of sorts. And one more, FOMO Pill. And so here is all of us as we look at our crypto situation. Crypto financial situation. So that is Explainer Gallery. I wanted to give everybody some time there. So continuing on, another big shout out and thank you to everybody who came to the Tukes show. 291 views. Pretty good. Pretty darn good. So thank you to each and every one of you for coming. Thank you for the people that came on stage, and big thank you to Tukes and Runetune. It's really fun. And this weekend, I have updated. I had to do some background sort of work on the podcast so I could update it again. It's been moved back to Spotify as far as podcasters for Spotify. So those will be updated. I'm going to do a big update with mech.txt, Dina Cheng. There is a fantastic amount of interviews that are going to come on if you haven't heard them, just from the last, since August. So those will be updated, hopefully this weekend. It is a top priority. Comments from last show. Kyle Flemmer. KF. Enough preparing, just start making stuff is my new mantra. Yeah, as I put in the reply, I learned this the hard way. Speaking of futures and options, I was working on these epic oil paintings. I would always come up with the title first, come up with the concept, and then try and do justice to the concept. It's a very difficult way of making work. I'm not against it. Sometimes it can be awesome. Sometimes, though, it's just best to start making stuff and actually put all the thinking to the side and just start making stuff. I learned that the hard way. Again, just final story on the Copernican revolution in my head that occurred while making futures and options. I was making, 2 paintings over 2 years on average. So I made 6 paintings over 3 years. And I thought to myself, nobody is seeing this stuff. I'm spending all this time making these, oil paintings on my own that, I post on my website, post once on social media, and nobody sees. And so what I did one night was I decided to do a painting in a night. And I realized after making that painting, it's kind of rougher and everything, more painterly, so to speak, looser, as my friend calls it. And I thought to myself, I think I like that painting just as much as the others, for different reasons, but just as much. And I never looked back. And that's how I was able, say, to do the Peloponnesian War series, which is actually over 200 works. 200 are the published works. So all to say, stop thinking and start doing is another way of putting it. So I'm glad you appreciate that. Retro Manny, some incredible work today. Mech's tile map and game process is certainly keeping me inspired. Absolutely, and we're going to see some more. If this was a tabloid, which actually kind of is in my universe, a tabloid of the imagination, not a news show, of course. But put it this way, I'd be putting a reporter on mech.txt. This story has legs. Give me what's the latest on mech, I'd be saying. From the editor's desk here. Thanks for responding to my question. Yes, maybe a space would be really fascinating on how we've evolved as artists over the last few years. kind of hilariously, how did NFT change your art? Kind of hilariously, so this was Retro Manny's question. We actually did a space exactly on that, and I had forgotten. But as I was looking at the podcast page, updating everything, I was like, this is hilarious. We've actually done a space on has NFTs changed your art? So maybe that's why I was so fascinated with that question. It's like, it's been haunting me for a while. So all to say, that was awesome and great to hear from you, Retro Manny. Scromra, quickly here, great show with many wonderful works I hadn't seen. And I'm glad to hear that, because Scomra's on the scene here. There's been a lot of talk about curation on Twitter the past few days. I think curation is at least in part about bringing people, buyers, in and making sense of what's going on for them. For me, as someone that is already here, curation is as important as something I would like to see taking place. That is already here, curation is important as something I would like to see taking place. But right now, it is not my passion, so I'm not going to be the one stepping up to do it. More important to me is discovery, and this show really embodies the wonder and passion of the work. It's a bit of a false dichotomy, but I don't think the idea of curation maps perfectly onto our decentralized space. I think what you're doing is a bit closer to what curation needs to look like in our space. You're doing a tremendous service to the community, or at least the pirate ship. Many thanks, and thank you, Scomra. I kind of agree. I actually don't really see, even though, technically what I'm doing here is a daily curation of sorts. It's kind of like DJing. In the sense of DJing, it is like curation. But I don't really, when you say it's not my passion to be a curator, I kind of feel the same way. Like that I kind of nodded my head to myself. It's not a passion. Although, depends how we mix our terms here. In a sense, I love doing this, though. So I'm passionate about putting this show together. So maybe it is, but I've put it this way. What I'm trying to say is, I never, ever studied or did anything in order to become a curator, I guess is my point. And I still have reservations about it, because let's say, Object 1, maybe you do something with Object 1. There was talk about, I thought to myself, I don't want to I guess I leave people out all the time in terms of this show. It's almost, for me, as I think I put in the reply, it's you've zeroed in on the essence of the show. It's more about observing and celebrating creativity and understanding the mechanisms of the creative process than anything else. This is an artist's journal. So thank you. I resonate a lot with what you're saying, Scomra. And this show is already 22 minutes in. Let's run here. Lepro Chant, awesome to hear from you. It's a pleasure to hear from you. Bazaya, thanks for the shout out. I am trying to just draw anonymous characters, so it's good to not know her. So that was an anonymous character. So interesting, and I always love to hear from people who are in the show, and as well as Gogolitis. Shout out. So thank you, everybody. And also, this was important and interesting. So the Kaden painting is a Degas. Remember, I was like, that really cool painting. I'd actually never seen that Degas before. I thought it was like, is this a Manet? Maybe this isn't AI art. And it was like a newspaper. Great subject matter. It was like where a newspaper was being printed. Also worth noting that the Simo physical painting is based on image created with Midjourney. He's doing a lot of interesting work exploring this idea. I mean, when I first heard of AI and Midjourney, I think a lot of artists, this was the first thought that went into their heads, right? Hey, I can just use this as a compositional tool, so to speak. So thanks for the comment, Chrome. And this is also important. B, excellent show. Astigmatism is a deviation from spherical curvature of the eye or a lens. Okay, so it is not related to the stigmata of, I think, Francis of Assisi, if I'm not mistaken. Yoain. Artists put so much of themselves into their work, and hearing kind words about it means the world to them. When someone genuinely comments on a piece, it's like they're seeing and appreciating a part of the artist's soul. And for other artists out there, don't hold back on sharing how a piece makes you feel. Your viewpoint is unique, and your words can be the start of a real bond between creators. And it can actually encourage the work too. This show probably wouldn't exist had not Chi Moscow Jackson and Mikael Noelsen not written a couple of comments on Twitter saying keep going. A couple of comments on Twitter saying, keep going, this is great, maybe it should be video, and there I went. So to your point, Yoain, sometimes just one honest comment can kickstart a true friendship and a true kind of artistic enterprise. So go ahead and tell that artist how their work touched you. It could mean everything to them. Exactly, when you're kind of floundering in the wilderness, unknown, unrecognized, one comment can mean the world to you and can actually encourage you to do another work. So it goes. So interesting comment from Yoain. Mikey de la Creme, equally stoked and petrified to announce my first ever physical offering. So look at Mikey de la Creme, collector turned artist, now making physical work, extending his range, thanks to Kelowna Contemporary Art Gallery, Kelowna Contemporary, for the encouragement to make this possible. Check the link for some, there we go, encouragement. Check the link for some background info on why I created this series in the first place. And I thought I saw, actually in a later tweet, and look at this. So, and nice signature, Mikey Wilson, by the way. And I love how it's underneath the AI kind of signature that's there, classic. M. Wilson. And a couple have sold. I saw in another tweet there, so that is super cool. And here, Kelowna Contemporary also, the show A Noisy Mind by ADHD, an artist we've seen here, shown a few times, is running at close to 70% sell-through. That's wild. Which is amazing, considering there are 64 works. An incredible feat by the artist who has dedicated to it the best part of the last 6 months. If you're in Philadelphia area, check it out. And so that is impressive, isn't it? And just more bullishness on this scene. Explainer Gallery, Trader Exhibition, Explainer times Object One. So also in the physical world. And Explainer is out of Shanghai, China. So super cool. Art Week by Sabato. And there is Art Week down there. There is Blue Retina. There is Saiko, there is Demon Ego. So we've seen all these works. Here they all are in the flesh, so to speak. Very cool. And continuing on, just artists at work. I thought this looked great. Santiago at work here in his style. And I tell you, this is some of the best marketing ever, is you just do works in progress. And it's also just interesting beyond the whole, marketing side of things. Very cool. And here's Santiago Ruau, who you could have the Santiago show here. And these would look like they'd actually hang together nicely, don't they? And a bit more of a colored feel to it. So nice work here in the sketchbook. And here is Eitzo, and this is quite interesting. Tonight's show setup out of Montreal, feeding 7 CRTs. I can't see. I think CRTs are old TVs or monitors. Hope it looks cool. So, this is a whole technique. There are artists who are purposely put a blindfold on and then make work. Eitzo is doing it with video mixing. How cool and interesting is that? And then get the recording from that. Sounds fascinating. Gloom Tube. So I think we saw this work yesterday. These are like postcard size. I realized I don't include sizing on the paintings, mostly because they're going to live digitally, but also because they're on cutout cereal boxes of random size. Very reminiscent of Eduardo Pulitzer. I'm starting to confuse artists. Eduardo, there's a famous pop artist who I'm sure someone out there will remember, actually collaborated a little bit with J.G. Ballard. He actually had a show at the Berliner Gallery, Berlinish Gallery in Berlin. His name is escaping me because I'm thinking of NFT artists instead. But who use cereal boxes and I'm sure other artists. This is a cool idea. So here's a little scale. So quite small, actually, which is interesting. Easy to ship too. Always looking at the pragmatic, practical side of the business here. Easy to ship, which matters because shipping can be very expensive. So cool work from Gloom Tube. We're going to see another one at the end of the show. Rata. This week it'll be available an NFT ticket on Tezos. Collectors can trade their ticket or burn it to claim a physical envelope sent by mail. Inside you'll find, here we are again, a small artwork. A 14 by 22 centimeter original artwork, glossy and glow-in-the-dark stickers, an extra surprise with mysterious utility. I'll update once you've sorted out the printing delays with more details about pricing and supply. Feel free to ask any questions. P.S. Original artworks are a mixture of watercolor, pencils, and or acrylic and won't be minted. So, again, I just see the NFT kind of digital art scene encroaching more and more on the contemporary kind of trad art world. And at a certain point, you know, if I had to make a bold prediction, I could just see it engulfing it. There's just too much work here. And we haven't even really started here. And look at how much there is to discuss in the last 48 hours. And all of these works that I'm showing here have kind of popped up in my feed in the last 48 hours. And like, I mean, here we go again. Danielle King, oh my God, these details. I can't wait to see this painting and all the other works in real life on Thursday. The energy here. So these are, as far as I understand, AI artworks that have been rendered in with a painting plotting tool by Art Matter and in collaboration with Transient Labs. And so this is basically robot painting AI artworks. So the energy. I mean, how exciting, how interesting. You know, one of the things I kind of noticed, and you got to love the close-ups here, you see how the stroke, if you can see that, it kind of continues beyond the color. You're starting to see the limits of the tech is what I was seeing, because it's like almost like they put on these kind of like painterly texture first, and then it's almost like it gets colored. So it's not like traditional painting in the sense that the brush stroke of, say, the nostril here, the outer area of the nostril would be like one stroke like that, like a degas, right? Degas is actually the correct pronunciation. It's a little different. So it's interesting here, and it's just interesting. So a little observation. Here's another one, Ira Greenberg, who I believe is with Art Matter, and I believe Painted Heads, Detail, Art Matter, Tender Art, and Transient Labs. So here's just another example. And here, I mean, it doesn't look as clearly kind of, because it almost looked like before the texture was made first and it was almost like spray painted over top, you know, for lack of a better term. Here, it's not as clear, that kind of look. Like here, it starts to look a little bit more just like a paintbrush. So interesting to see how this all comes out. This is super interesting. Ripcash. Shout out to Ripcash, who gave me a shout out. Huge artist here in the crypto art scene. Totally appreciated that. And look at this. I mean, a conversation we're super interested in. Please join me in congratulating these 4 collectors on their acquisition of all 4 of my 5 inscriptions from my only ordinals collection for 5 BTC. So we're talking $150,000. That I was saying, you know, if you haven't heard of Ripcash, sells quite for quite a huge amount. And look at this as well. I mean, to me, it's almost becoming an aesthetic property of digital art in some scenarios to see how small and condensed you can get the file size in order to kind of, you know, render the work on the blockchain in a affordable way. Because, you know, someone was reaching out about putting the Peloponnesian War. We take them all off Ethereum, and why don't we put them on Bitcoin? And I love that idea. But then we ran into stumbling blocks on the size. You know, some are a couple of megabytes, some are, it was turning into $2,000 per mint to mint them on Bitcoin. So I almost want to do a different remix series, though, perhaps, and put it on Bitcoin. Put it on the infinite list of things to do. Anyways, I think this is brilliant. Again, 2 colors, not even that large a canvas. So again, these are probably like a few bytes, these works. So probably minted for a few dollars. Very smart, very cool. And it becomes a part of the aesthetic appreciation, at least from my perspective. I go, oh, look at how brilliant that is. Look at how beautifully done that is, right? Here's another interesting situation here, kind of on a different tip. But remixing for different blockchains. So kind of analogous to what we were seeing with Ripcash, what I was saying, hey, what if I just remix the Peloponnesian War to a certain kind of way, and then you put it, you know, a very kind of lo-fi version, for example, on the blockchain. Look at Grimm. And we were looking at that other beautiful work that Grimm put out the other day with Andy0034. And what is it? Just Andy. Recent bid 24 Tezos. This sold for only 36 Tezos, by the way. This one of one. This was put on Object on Tezos on the left, and this one on the right was put, this beautiful work here, was put on Ethereum. So again, instead of, not only remixing for low file sizes, but remixing for different blockchains. It's a very fun idea. And this idea of copies is coming back over and over in our digital art context. And it seems very important, to speak in a very slow, methodical, simple way as we're hearing the very philosophical Tukes yesterday. So here is the work on Tezos, the work I found. And look at how great this looks. Inverted, right? The other one, so it looks like a simple invert with maybe a few adjustments, the rumbling, and again, 35 Tezos, pretty good for this one of one. This looks great by Grimoire and AC0042. Uxine. We're going to have to speed through this show as per usual. Just a cool post, and I think I like the text as much as the image, and I think the image is brilliant. These big chunky pixels, just, I thought this was hilarious, though. Using, in a sense, this kind of ASCII text here and then putting the ASCII text into, like, the generator that produces this kind of vertical text, that is quite brilliant. And Uxine, the details, it's just all, again, like a martial artist here of the blockchain. Really brilliant. Simulated Joy season begins. I mean, you see it even in the name of the series. Maybe Drapeg, maybe that's JPEG, but done with the dictionary spelling. Really taking care of the phonetically, taking care of the details here. Soulcatcher. And here you see already 666 Tezos on secondary, tried and failed. There's a lot of humor, dark humor in Uxine's work, and then you see this great kind of pixelated store sign for sale, tried and failed, and now has to get the Grim Reaper has to get, or whatever the figure is, has to get a new sickle. And interesting kind of light and shadow here too. And almost like the Grim Reaper doesn't give as much of a shadow as the light pole. A lot of, again, the details, the dexterity of Uxine. Rosaccio. Good to see Rosaccio back with an edition with, let me see if I can make this big, with an edition with Super Chief, and they're going for only 0.001 ETH. Let me just bring this up here. So a cool new Rosaccio work, and here we see all of the classic, tropes of Rosaccio, whether it's the egg, the skull, and the kind of the collage, the blinking, almost like this blinking GIF, and the color, and the windows, and everything. So just a classic. What's cool about, we're talking about copies and digital art and copying. What's kind of cool about Rosaccio's work is, like here, say this eye here. This looks like a copy, right? And then maybe that's the same eye, but smaller, right? This is very digital, right? I mean, with just straight up collage, that's not as easy to do. And hey, these are probably elements taken from other works, so moving layers across files, so to speak. I do it. It's a wonderful technique. And why shouldn't one do it? It's kind of like, it's embracing the language of digital art. Digital art is asking you to almost do this in a certain way. As I said in an earlier episode, it's accepting the logic of digital art. Continuing on. This was a little risque, frankly, for this show. I like to consider this a family show, but I have to say, once I saw the surveillance camera, I thought this was quite brilliant, and it kind of put a whole... To me, it turned what could be seen as a gratuitous work into a conceptual work and kind of gave it that extra dimension I'd argue this work needed. So, brilliant move there by Rare in the top right, and you gotta love the shadow here too, as these, Boston Dynamics dogs get busy here. And so sold out at 10, edition of 10, accepted offers at 60, 70, and now going for 150. Maybe some of you can recognize the artist. It is Cider with a bull here, a classic, one of the oldest icons in the tradition. going back all the way to the cave paintings of Lascaux. That's why when you see Picasso doing a bull, the bull is, we have the centaur. It is one of the oldest images, so it's kind of a classic. And again, what's so interesting about Cider is Cider, readily, happily admits, like, I don't know a ton about art history. But Cider's just has the instinct. I mean, like through the style and even in the subject matter. You see the microwave, these brilliant kind of pop works, and here doing a bull. Like Cider is just true natural, I would argue. Hubal Waffle sneaks in a couple. I didn't even see it other than, and by the way, I haven't even looked at my object notifications. There were too many works that I found on Twitter in the last 2 days. I haven't even looked at the object notifications, which is usually another whole layer of works I could put in. So maybe I'll do that tonight or tomorrow morning. I make these entire shows in the morning, by the way, other than the bookmarks that I do along the way. So here's Hubal Waffle. Now, Hubal, I saw a tweet and I thought I bookmarked it, maybe lost somewhere in the bookmarks. I saw a tweet where Hubal is using Mario Paint, and I wonder, there it is, N64. This is Mario Paint, I believe. So playing with a new one. What's so interesting about this, so playing with a new software, but I would say instantly recognizable as a Hubal Waffle. So isn't that interesting? Life penalty, forma mais baixa. So I usually never know what's going on. One went to Ile, one went to Little Cakes, and one maybe for the vaults. Art posers. Here's a fun one, kind of relating to our opening work here by Sabato. These could hang well together. So art posers, great title. And here they are in the gallery talking up whatever is going on the walls here. Just another stunning, beautiful work. Is this N64? So probably, I'm assuming, I'm not positive, and maybe just incorporating in the Nintendo 64 Mario Paint, but not sure exactly what's going on because it kind of looks like the other works here. And as Hubal commented on a previous show just a couple of shows ago, he put a list, and I think I read it out here, of all of the softwares that Hubal uses very generously. I'm not sure if I read that. Maybe I should go back to that. And even if I did, it's probably worth just recounting and going back to that. Temple Mizmiz, Revenge of Mediocrity, is the series here, and kind of a cool painting here. And I found this on Hubal's feed. That I think, I'm not sure if Hubal picked up this one, but then I went to Temple Mizmiz's page and saw these just interesting work here. A lot of combination of a lot of things, edgy and bold. A 1 of 1, let's just see what it sold for. 14 Tezos. So you blink and you missed it. This was super interesting. Grotesque, Chic, Apache, and I'm not sure if they're on the blockchain. This is a digital work. You see the kind of the dragged brushes here? I thought this was quite interesting. I have a low Mac battery. What am I going to do? So I'm going to have to adjust this. All right, slight battery issues. They are now solved. And so this is Grotesque Chic. War never changes, and the computer is very, very hot. Okay, so I'm going to run through the rest of this, and it was time to run through anyway. But this mark making over here is really interesting and cool. I'd like to know more. It's basically how I feel about that one. Rustic digital art, Cows and Clouds. So kind of a classic idea here, putting programming text, overlaying it on top of a landscape. Interestingly, let's just make this bigger. If we can make it is bigger. Interestingly, you see how the programming text is actually behind the hill? So it's almost like clouds, isn't it? So interesting piece here, interesting GIF from Rustic Digital Art. And this is on Object and is only 3 Tezos 30 cents. There's one left on primary. Continuing on, we have Boo Boy with a new work. And so I believe this is part of an edition. So kind of a cool collage here. Slightly different, but recognizably Boo Boy here. Let's just see what it says. Created by collaborative mind, Muji and Boo Boy, Temple of Art. And so that looks really cool. Minted, so you can mint it for 0.04 ETH, I believe, on Foundation. So cool piece here, Temple of Art by Boo Boy. And here's another interesting piece I found on Twitter. Pandu Hollywood Dream. And almost reminiscent of these ceramics that you find out here in the Mediterranean, this kind of blue and light blue, dark, kind of different shades of blue and white. Really nice piece here. Interesting drawing from Pandu. And here is Burka Byam coming soon. So cool looking work here. Almost looks like Godzilla. And then some scared figures here in the background. So cool work by Burka Byam, and Flora Marquez is going to be putting out a new work on Arzora with Neutro Arts. Wishing you all a fantastic day. Exciting news, I'm working on a new piece that will be part of a collective drop with the amazing friends of Neutro Arts. Stay tuned for more updates. So that looks like a great piece, doesn't it? Continuing on, and speaking of great pieces, look at this work by Santiago. It's the juxtaposition that really kind of sends this one into the stratosphere, so to speak. We've seen experimentation like we see on the right. I haven't seen a ton of this on the left. Interesting stretching. It's a cool, if that's what's going on. It's not exact stretching, though, as we see over here. Juxtaposing, in a sense, kind of two different kinds of abstracts. But you see, they're the same shape here, at least at the bottom. I mean, very, very, very interesting work here. And so screen printable on the left. And even on the right, if you reduced it to a few colors. But even on the left, I mean, these are ready to print, interestingly. Another gorgeous work. And I think there's a clue. There is a clue on one of these gorgeous works here. I think it's using AI, P5JS. If you go to Santiago's feed, you'll see more explanation. Maybe it's here. No. So all to say, Santiago puts out a ton of tweets. So I would go to his feed now, but it would probably take a while to find. And our battery is running lower than I would like here. So just more super interesting works. You got to love this kind of pixel-esque crop. Really, on daily kind of, speaking of journals, it's like a daily journal of sorts. Continuing on, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful work by Santiago Yurij with another experiment here, another interesting, I believe it's called Transitions, transition number 20. This is on Tezos, only an edition of 11 for 5 Tezos. So playing with, I think the similar structure is previous abstracts, but different kinds of fills, different kinds of treatments. Fascinating series here. And continuing on, and the world is just not cooperating with me. Let me just try and connect to my iPhone here. There we go. This should load. And okay, we're in business, my friends, against all the odds sometimes in beautiful paradise over here. Kristen Roos, thanks Killer Acid for inviting me to create a piece for the theme Breakthrough. It's so nice to see what other artists are inspired by, and in this case, it's led to creating new work that has evolved out of meeting people and sharing ideas. Cuboid Morphosis released today on Click Create IO. I wonder if that's Killer Acid's. Oh, it's just a digital art curated by artists, so that is what is going on there. Interesting. And of course, Kristen Roos, cool artist here, so kind of almost has a bit of a Killer Acid feel to it. Continuing on, Nicholas Sassoon has been posting some tantalizing abstracts here. Pattern 14, 2023, 1025, so maybe the title name and the date. I'm really enjoying making these. Now I have to figure out where and how to drop them. So cool work here. Here's another one, Pattern 12. Also made just the other day. So a ton of new work coming out here. Interesting colors here. Really interesting artists. Datura, Lipsky, 43. This came out about a week ago, October 16th, from Datura. Kind of almost a little bit more abstract. than the regular Datura stuff. So interesting work here. I think Uxine picked one up, which is how I saw it in a tweet. Cool work by Datura, as usual. This was interesting as well. Art World, an ode to New York, John F. Simon Jr.'s Complex City is often described as one of his most autobiographical works. So I'm not sure exactly who made this, if it's John F. Simon Jr. or someone else, but let's make this big. So just an interesting artwork here. If you want to learn more, I think just an interesting combination, kind of novel, right? So if you want to learn more, go to Art World without an O to their feed. Santiago Yurij, who's actually going to be on the Spaces next week, has put out a piece here, and I guess has a podcast too. So just a cool abstract work here on Teia, and kind of psychedelic in the in these almost like these veins that are kind of falling into each other somewhat a little bit here. An interesting kind of center there. Ugo DVD. So taking a DVD logo and giving it the treatment. What's interesting is it seems like there's an extra layer of treatment from Ugo's kind of newer style or experimental style here. And here it seems a little bit more pixelated, doesn't it? So I thought that was quite interesting. At auction for 3 Tezos, edition of 4. And it wouldn't be this week if we didn't have a mech.txt work to look at here. It's not always sunny in the tropics, so this looks like an island. Again, just kind of shouts Ultima 4 to me. Look at this great water. I mean, this looks like so much fun to do. The great minimal colors, again, screaming out to be screen printed. Almost looks like lightning. Here's another work here. Tall ivory tower and flat wooden houses. Interesting, it's kind of simple sky. And again, the contrast that is made by these big, huge, flat, pixelated blocks with the rest is just gorgeous. And again, just screams Ultima 4. I love how there's some shadow here, too. That is hilarious. So just more gorgeous, stunning work by mech.txt. And kind of to our earlier discussion on working fast, I'm slowly streamlining my workflow, churning out more clearly flawed outputs instead of waiting for that perfect one. More kind of, don't be overly precious with your work. Just get it out, keep moving, built Euclidean. Kind of just like, I mean, mech.txt is an accomplished graphic designer and artist, so don't be a perfectionist and just get stuff out. Robbing my lunch break again, heads down in Godot, which I believe is the software here, making a proper entrance, a humble start for a silly monomyth. And so at work again in this, what looks like kind of gaming software of a certain kind. And here's one more. You found an old ivory tower, raise it down. So yes or no, just like these old RPG games, and there's the shadow and this wonderful water. Again, you know you like it when you kind of want to do it yourself. It's a great work when you kind of want to start making work after seeing it, and that's exactly what that series is. And here's Green Ginger, kind of similar idea here, protecting the heart of the sea. And this is for 12 Tezos on Object. And I believe Mech put out a tweet that the MS-DOS works are going to be minted soon. So that should be awesome. Green Ginger, also happy International Artists Day. A beautiful celebration of digital art here. Just a cool celebration of digital art. We check the battery. We're okay. 45%, but going down quickly. So we will continue here. Denirus. And this is for Fear for Tez, so kind of a Halloween theme here. Ditheria, you are for dead, pal. So just kind of a fun work here, kind of pixel art work put on, I think Cap'n retweeted this by Denirus, a 1 of 1 for 70 Tezos. I thought this was gorgeous by Kyle Flemmer, Endless Sunset. And how cool is that? Giving the glitch ROM treatment to a sunset. How cool is that? So RTC applied to Sailor Moon. RTC, I believe, is a glitch ROM software for SNES. This is awesome. Pamelo Cerrone, who seems to have a lot. Okay, you are fighting the elements. My computer's starting to get very hot here, and the mic has been cut out. Okay, so we will continue, and we're going to run through this. I'm not going to move the mic this time, so hopefully you can hear this. Let me just play, because Pamelo Cerrone is kind of a natural musician. I hope you can hear that. It is so fun. I think Pamelo Cerrone can do music pretty darn good. I believe that is by Pamelo Cerrone, the music. I mean, so I can't read that, but I think that's what's going on. Lura Mills, who is also, I'm going to tease, actually, they're going to be on a Spaces in about 3 or 4 weeks here. So that is super exciting with David Bowie. How cool is that? And so just a cool work posted on X. And also Jun Kiyoshi, Pairs of Triangles, so using source code here and just doing an animated abstract with code. And I thought this was a pretty original take on kind of a triangle. Continuing on, Parsa Mostagim with a super cool work here, what you call a CGI telephone call. So very interesting work here. Almost looks abstract, but then you can kind of see stuff in it. This is on Instagram. Fairly large file, 4300 by 5400. This was super interesting. So this is on Zora. This is an artist who, let's see the name here, who I found on his Hubal Waffle's feed, Moranical.exe, and they had this work also on Zora. Interesting take on Mickey Mouse, hey? Pop contemporary, indeed. And here, don't worry, play again. Look at this. How fun. I hope you can hear it. I mean, amazing. It's like, how cool is that? So 10 Tezos, edition of 6. Let's see how many are left. 1 left, and actually sold by Zoxo. So yeah, it kind of feels like a similar artist would hang beautifully with Zoxo, wouldn't it? This was an artist, I think Santiago Yurij mentioned on Twitter, I can hardly breathe. How did I end up here? It's Reina. So again, this kind of video game theme. Kind of RPG-esque. Pretty cool. That is also on Tezos, edition of 15 for only 2 Tezos 50, $1.80. Can you spare? Voodoo Simulator by Kurt Hustle Collective, also with a bit of a video game feel on Easter Island. Cool music, which I hope you can hear. Gorgeous music. And these guys make everything. Very nice, kind of dry kick drum there. So, again, Kurt Hustle Collective, look at that logo. Voodoo Simulator, 5 Tezos, edition of 13, pretty reasonable. And here's one more, 1997 in the future, in their name there. Let's see if we can play this from the start. Kurt Hustle Collective. Out now. So the Brilliance continues. From Kurt Hustle Collective. Let me make sure that... Oh, yeah. There we go. Somfe with a super cool work here. I don't think there's any volume. And just another interesting kind of piece from Somfe. Kind of a figure here. Almost reminds you of that V for Vendetta guy. Tegenhoff, Adam and Eve. So moving into AI here, Adam and Eve are dancing tango. And again, we're starting to see more interesting textures in AI art here. Kind of dancing the tango, 1 of 1 for only 12 Tezos. And speaking of interesting textures in AI, here's Skamra. Almost like a woman in a chair, or seated woman. Interesting textures there. Here's another from the laptop series. And again, also by Skamra. And again, you see these AI distortions, but taken to that next level and turning them into a line drawing. Very, very, very interesting. And sometimes that extra transformation is all you need. Continuing on, Yoa In with a couple of cool experimental posts here. GN, if you love abstract pop surrealism. Absolutely. And so you can tell it seems like, you know, unminted and just in the early phases because it's a square. You almost get the sense this is like an output of Midjourney or something incredibly, perhaps. Here's another one. So just stunningly gorgeous works from Yoa In. And here's Evelyn Uh, Thank you so much, Punk7708, for collecting Likely Anon Foundation and as well as Unknown Collector for the assist. It's one of my favorites in the series. Yeah, it looks great. So more super interesting figurative AI artwork. And here, of course, is Tukes, drenched in distant arrays. So I highly recommend you, if you like Tukes' work, to check out that Spaces. You'll find out also how, one of the ways Tukes would describe coming up with the titles is trying to describe the work to ChatGPT and then getting ChatGPT to give you a title and getting stuff like this. Drenched in distant arrays. Just again, a fascinating discussion yesterday. Of course, Lily Illo. This looks like it's from M-Props, if I had to hazard a guess. Interesting distortion in the eye there. And here's Strange Thing, and this is going to be part of the Art Matter show. I think these are the originals. So it'll be fascinating to see how Art Matter paints these, right? Because this is almost very kind of old masters Renaissance style. That's going to be fascinating to watch. Interesting there. So very interesting work, especially the pixels. That'll be interesting too. Very interesting work from Strange Thing. Some NASA gear. And here's Danielle King, GN, lovely people of the internet. Looks like the abandoned mall here. So another cool work. Not sure if that's an ATM or a phone booth or a little bit of both. Cool work from Danielle King. Eitso, show me your favorite piece by one of my heroes, Sky Goodman. I thought this was a brilliant portrait. And even with the writing on top, it looks like a Polaroid of maybe a screen treatment. I thought this was a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant portrait. You can make a whole series. And I love the writing on top. Just brilliant from Eitso. Some more physical work, Gloom Tube, Waffle House employee in the wilderness. Almost reminds you of Saint, the Leonardo Saint, the guy with the book, Saint Jerome in the wilderness. Waffle House employee in the wilderness. If we had more time, my computer is like breaking down. And it's not that old. It's just so hot in here. Otherwise, St. Jerome in the Wilderness. Check it out, Leonardo. Very similar to that, I believe. Here's Myth with a painting. Self-portrait is acrylic on cardboard, lost physical painting. So there's only the NFT left. Another interesting scenario, and it's just that kind of show today. Jim Pico. I thought this was a brilliant painting. So again, family show. Won't leave it on too long. That was brilliant, though. Basilica Lehman. Helen Martin, 1985, nylon paint on fabric, aluminum, ash frame, MDF, steel, So, pretty interesting piece here, posted on Instagram, Basilica Lehman. And here's another one, Jordan Ferguson, kind of has playing with those hard contour digital brushes, but it's acrylic on canvas. Again, as things transform going through mediums, here we see it with acrylic and digital. From the Christian Hilurgity Gallery, Mark Your Territory, brand new work by L.A. Tattooey. And you see the figure kind of pressed into maybe sweating or something, or the sunblock pressed into the chair. Interesting painting. And Walk, look at this. Current bid 78 euros on eBay. I mean, Walk's making a nice little business on eBay. Italia there. And there's Metallica. I think just very interesting. Nice sprays at the bottom there. And that, my friends, is your show. Thank you for joining me again. Until next time, take care.